when we're trying to change our behaviors, there's some behaviors that we want to be experts at. And then there's some behaviors that we're perfectly fine being amateurs at, right? And on the bottom two as well, the habitué or the addict, there's behaviors that we want to stop doing that are low willpower and high willpower. So it's not necessarily the person, it's the behavior they're trying to change. But I think you'll find it very difficult to become an expert at something if you use the same criteria that it takes to become an amateur at something. If your test to become an expert is this Mia, you actually won't have the grit and perseverance needed to power through the times that are shitty, that are hard. So most people's problems, I think, when it comes to the fitness space in particular, is that we train like we're experts, even though what we want is an amateur behavior. Right? We go to the gym and we have the mentality that we need a trainer and fitness programs, and we need to no pain, no gain, and it's got to hurt or it doesn't work. And that's the expert mentality. I've written on this article you alluded to called "Why Fitness Apps Make You Fat." Because what we find is that when you take that mindset in the expert quadrant of I've got to figure out, the expert quadrant is all about figuring out your mistakes, and it's got to be in some way painful in a way, or you're not going to get better. What that means is that people are doing exercise that they hate, which means it's not going to be sustainable. Not only that, we know that when you suffer at something, there's this phenomenon called moral licensing. That when we feel like we've sacrificed in one area of our lives, it's like squeezing on a balloon, right? When we feel like we're being good in one area of our lives, we cheat in other areas of our life, right? I squeeze on this end of the balloon, the other area, and we've seen this phenomenon occur time and time again. We find that when people buy green products, they're actually less kind. They're less likely to help someone who's just fallen down in front of them after they've sacrificed by buying an ecologically sound product. Some of the highest insurance rates on the road today are from a car that you wouldn't expect it. It's not Ferraris and Lamborghinis. Some of the highest insurance rates are for blue Priuses. Right?
Interesting.
Right, because there's this effect of moral licensing. If we're good in one area, we're allowed to be bad in other areas. So how does this play out in the fitness world? Well, I just, sweated it out on the treadmill for 30 minutes, and it was so difficult, and I did it. I persevered, and it was so hard for me. I didn't enjoy a second of it. I deserve a Jamba Juice with 60 grams of sugar and 600 calories. Even though I only burned 300 calories on the treadmill, right. I deserve a reward. And unfortunately, when bringing it back to the technology industry, a lot of fitness apps today only look at that side of the equation. They're only about getting your step counts because they're using the expert mode as opposed to the amateur mode. So we talked about the top of that behavior change matrix, right? These do behaviors that are either low willpower or high willpower. At the bottom of that behavior change matrix are the don't behaviors, the things we want to stop doing. And so there again, we have low willpower and high willpower. So what I've utilized in my life is using a technique I call progressive extremism. Progressive extremism. And the idea is that the problem with diets, and the reason that diets make us fat, is that they train our brains to anticipate scarcity. And of course, what you're doing when you train the brain to do something is that you're heightening the awareness. You're making us, these diets train us to expect, okay, I'm suffering today, but as soon as this diet ends and I can fit into my wedding dress, or the graduation ceremony comes, or here's my goal by the end of the year, I'm gonna, be at this weight. As soon as I free myself from that diet, and that's the problem. So instead of saying, a diet that has this time-based endpoint, what I advocate for is progressive extremism. So pick something that you want to stop eating, in this case, if food is is the behavior we're trying to change. And the criteria is pick something that you can give up without too much trouble, but you can give it up for the rest of your life. Why would I want to do something temporarily and then go back to eating the way I used to eat? That doesn't make any sense. Of course I'm going to gain the weight. I want to make a permanent change. And so I started out with the first thing that I excised from my life was candy corn. And so I just cut them out and say, I'm never eating candy corn ever again. And then what happened? And I kept track. I kept track of everything I gave up. And then maybe like a week or two later, I'd assess and say, hey, that wasn't so hard. What else could I give up? And then I would give up another thing. And another thing. Then I think the thing I gave up was no sugary drinks in the house. Okay, I could have sugary drinks outside the house, no sugary drinks in the house ever again for the rest of my life. It's a rule. Progressive extremism. So I went up this chart, kind of more and more and more things that I was giving up, until I gave up, just last June, I gave up refined sugars completely. It's just not something I do. Now, people have no trouble saying, oh, candy corn, easy, that's great. But then you say, okay, I'm going to give up all refined sugars, and people say, oh, that's not so cool anymore. Right. But of course, that's the natural progression. And what you're doing here is you're using this phenomenon of self-image. That when you talked about self-image earlier, and how we can actually utilize how we see ourselves to boost our willpower. There's been a lot of studies that show that when people identify a behavior that they do or don't do as part of who they are, it becomes much easier to resist. For example, if you're a vegetarian, if you're a devout Muslim, if you're an Orthodox Jew, you're not constantly asking yourself, should I eat the meat, or should I have some beer, or should I have some pork, right? Like, that's not a debate you're having on a constant basis. You just don't do that, because that's who you are, right? If I'm a devout Muslim, I just don't drink. That's just what I do. If I'm a vegetarian, I just don't eat meat. It's no longer a debate of should I, can I, is it okay? I just don't, right? Whereas many dieters, they think to themselves, well, should I not, should I have the cake? And what they're doing is expending this willpower resource that over time, there's a lot of evidence that shows becomes depleted, and it becomes very hard. It's this constant struggle. But by doing this progressive extremism and saying, look, that's just one thing I just don't eat, and taking it slowly. I mean, this has to take years to scale up. You're constantly excising things from your life, from your diet, but for the rest of your life. And it's using that same principle of, this is just who I am, I just don't eat those things. So that's the shift, is changing your mindset of this is something I just don't do versus something I can't do. Which, can't means, maybe it's flexible, versus something I just do not do.
People have to understand, are you using your device, or is your device using you? Can you put it down? Can you turn it off?
If you don't read the newspaper, you're uninformed. If you do read it, you're misinformed.
So what do you do?
That's a great question. What is the long-term effect of too much information? One of the effects is the need to be first, not even to be true anymore. So what a responsibility you all have to tell the truth, not just to be first, but to tell the truth. We live in a society now where it's just first. Who cares? Get it out there. We don't care who it hurts. We don't care who we destroy. We don't care if it's true. Just say it, sell it.
My biggest concern is the unfettered access to social media and cell phones, quite frankly, because there's a biology to these things that are as addictive as alcohol, nicotine, and gambling.
Right now, a family is out to dinner at a restaurant, not enjoying each other's company, but each staring into the screen of their choice, completely ignoring the family members. And this is mom, dad, and the children all doing the same thing while they continue to eat. They did it the entire meal. Right now, an infant is getting their first iPhone and learning to tap and swipe all while drooling on it. 92% of 2-year-olds play video games because that is what parents are putting in front of their precious children to keep them entertained and quiet.
This is your life now. No natural behavior. Everybody's wearing clothes they don't want to wear. Everybody's showing up and doing something they don't want to do, they have no connection to. That's the problem with our society. And then what's the reward for all this stuff? Go home, get a big TV. Go home, you're gonna get a shiny belt buckle. You're gonna get a nice purse. You're gonna wear shoes that you couldn't afford last week. You're gonna get that dream car. And every week we're chasing down this new object. And every week we're trying to fill this hole in this sad shadow of a life that we've been left with after work. That you work 8 to whatever the hours a day plus commuting, and then you're like this. And that's your life. That's your real life. All that other stuff is not your life anymore. All that other stuff is work. And most of us have committed to that. I know you've been there before, and I've been there before. And we understand that it's a trap because we got out of it. But for the people that are in it, a lot of times they don't even understand it's a trap. They just think it's a good job. They think they got dental. I'm doing really good. I got my own parking spots, got my name on it. And you're just a piece of a heartless, shitty machine that makes money.
All these kids that are graduating college with these $80,000 degrees that can't even work at Starbucks. All the people who put their money in the stock market and bought all this real estate, 2008, it all went away. Don't let anybody fool you into believing that there's a guarantee, that there's a safe way. The well-trodden path is the scariest way, in my opinion, right? Because then you just spent the last 80 years of your life doing everything that everybody else told you to do, and you never really lived or produced anything unique. If everybody's going this way, go that way.
We now know that many of the major social media companies hire individuals called attention engineers who borrow principles from Las Vegas casino gambling, among other places, to try to make these products as addictive as possible.
In South Korea, internet addiction is classified along with alcohol, cigarettes, and gambling as an addiction.
You know, it's about balance. It's not that they're inherently bad, and it's not that texting or social media is inherently bad, but it's when it gets out of balance. If somebody carries their phone wherever they go, like they physically feel anxiety if they put it down. When they're with their friends and have to have it up the entire time looking at the phone while they're with their friends. You know, when they wake up in the morning and check their phone before they say good morning to the person sleeping next to them. These are problems. This is out of balance.
I'm not knocking the phone. What I'm saying is we have to understand, we have to at least ask ourselves, around the world, you here in England, wherever you are, what is it doing to us?